last session of the day. Thanks for coming. It's a 3-hour session as we close out the night. My name's Alistair Spears. I'm a Senior Operations PM in the Office 365 team based out of Redmond, Washington over in the US. My team's responsible for deployment, all the deployment capabilities of Office 365 and the Office services. We're also responsible for the service deprecation strategy and end-of-life strategy for some of our on-premises products as well. The rest of my team is kind of taken to calling me the funeral director of Office, which I don't mind too much because the director's a promotion, so maybe there's a pay increase. But essentially that's what this topic is about, is how we go about managing end-of-life moments for Office and Office 365. So we'll talk a bunch of these things as well. It's a nice, intimate audience, so what I hope is that this is a representative of those people that are on our older software. Everyone else here has already upgraded, has no reason to look at this topic. But let's keep this interactive. There's only a few of us, so feel free to yell questions out. I have like 100 of the most boring slides you've ever seen that I can take you through, but I'd much rather keep this interactive and those sorts of things as well. So, who remembers their first version of Office? What did you use first? Mario, what was Office 95. Yeah. What about you, sir? Yeah. Word for DOS, yeah, there we go. Anyone, I don't think we can beat Word for DOS. That's pretty much the earliest version we go. Maybe there was a Word starred on Apple Macintosh at some point in time, but you know, we've been at this game quite a long time in the Office team. Office is over 30 years old, and so we've seen a lot of versions come and go, and over that time we have developed a fair amount of rigor at how these releases come out. So hopefully everyone knows our lifecycle policies for Office. Who's familiar with mainstream support? Anyone? Okay. How long is mainstream support usually? Hands up for 10 years. Hands up for 5 years. Yeah, good. Extended support. Hands up for 5 years. Yeah, it's an extra 5 years on extended support as well. But when we think about Office 365, we don't have such a fixed life cycle. With Office Client, you know exactly when we're going to deprecate a version of Office because we tell you when we release the product. You know exactly when that product will come out of support. You know, when we released Office 2007, you knew that in October 13th, 2017, Office 2007 would be out of support. But for Office 365, it isn't such a straightforward experience because it's not a fixed life cycle. It's a dynamic life cycle and it changes over time. Excuse me, while I'm about to lose power. Speaking of life cycle, and then of course I need that is it. So, who knows how much notice you'll get for us to remove a feature from Office 365? Anyone want to take a guess? 90 days? 1 year? 80? Yeah, 1 year is the right answer. So if we deprecate a feature or deprecate a product in Office 365 that has no successor product, 12 months notice is the notice that you'll get that feature will be removed. If we say there's no more SharePoint in February 14th, 2018, there'd be no more SharePoint. However, if we say there's no more SharePoint, the next solution is Office 365 OneDrive, then the policy is a little bit different. So if there is a successor product, and if there is action that you need to take to migrate, the policy is 30 days. So, our policy is 30 days with notice to make a change. And so these are some kind of interesting policies that you should all really internalize, because it does change the way that you look at these pieces of software. A couple of sites to go through really quickly. Firstly, the Microsoft Lifecycle Policy site, support.microsoft.com/lifecycle. This is the site where we list all of our different products. You can see the actual policies for online services, for on-premises services, and those sorts of things as well. And they are different. They're different between products. And so Windows, for instance, its support policies now are much more closely aligned to the chipset cycle. And so when a particular version of Windows comes out, it'll actually work on particular versions of Intel processors. And so that Windows cycle is really tied to that upgrade cycle as well. For things like consumer software, there's a much shorter lifespan, generally 5 years for Office consumer products and those sorts of things as well. And our online policies and our modern policies. Has anyone heard of our modern lifecycle policies? The first product to really use this modern lifecycle policy is System Center. And in the new System Center, essentially the policy states that you need to keep the software current. So there are patches and there are updates, and feature updates are applied to System Center on a regular basis. So that you have a year to use a product, and then you need to apply the next update and the next feature update to continue to use the product as well. So these are evolutions on that traditional 5+5 product support lifecycle as well. A couple of other sources to show you here. Who's seen the Office 365 roadmap? Show of hands. This is a really important site to check. Essentially what this site does is it's connected directly to our engineering system. So as we advance features through release, through development, through testing, and through phased rollout. And again, everything in Office 365 is a phased rollout. So when we release a feature, we test it on one tenant first, and then we test it on the next tenant. And that next tenant's usually the Microsoft tenant, so we kind of inflict that pain on ourselves first. And then it rolls out to first release tenants, then gradually rings and rings of tenants gets larger and larger until the features roll out to all particular tenants as well. And so for some of these cases, for some of these features, they're eased out over a period of perhaps 3 months. And so if you do have multiple tenants, if you have like a dev tenant and a test tenant and a production tenant, sometimes you'll see features light up in different tenants at different speeds. And so this is the site to go to check where features are being rolled out, details of those features. You see here that every feature has an ID number as well, so you can track that feature throughout its launch, and you can look up those particular features as well. And again, there are a lot of features. It's kind of crazy now that in Office and our 10,000 engineers, everyone is working on a feature and shipping a feature. And the old days of release, we'd have the entire team all aiming for that one date, 3 years in the future to release a product. Now, in many ways, all of these teams and all of these different engineering groups are unbound. They can ship their features on their cadence, which is great. It frees up a lot of flexibility. The old model, if you missed that one-day date, essentially 1,000 days in the future, if you missed that, you had to wait another 1,000 days before your feature would get released. And of course, a lot can happen in 3 years in the life cycle as well. So this, again, is a really interesting site to check as well. Office 365 Pro Plus. Who's using Office 365 Pro Plus? Who knows which policy Office 365 Pro Plus falls under? Guess. The traditional Office policy or the Office 365 policy? Of course, the answer's in the name. So Office 365 Pro Plus, even though it's a client application, it still follows that Office 365 release cadence and release policy. So there's a couple of gotcha moments there for Office 365 Pro Plus. Firstly, we only support the latest builds. of Office 365 Pro Plus. So you do need to be up to date on Office 365 to get support. If you call Microsoft with an issue on a particular old build, the first thing you'll be told is you need to upgrade to the latest build. We don't issue hot fixes for old builds. We only patch the kind of current branch of the most current channels of Office 365 Pro Plus. Also, it means that there's no kind of support for keeping the 2013 version of Office 365 Pro Plus around. By now, hopefully most of you have moved to the Office 2016 version. The Office 365 Pro Plus client itself was set to automatically upgrade to Office 2016. So there are a couple of things to think about there. Firstly, what your users would have seen is an Upgrade Now button appear sometime over the last 12 months as Office 2016 was rolled out, essentially clicking that update. What happened in the background? Office 365 Pro Plus downloaded the new version of Office 365 Pro Plus, had it all ready to install, and then waiting for the users to click the upgrade button in the interface itself. Generally, if we did a managed deployment or an enterprise deployment of Office 365 Pro Plus, we wouldn't let users self-upgrade, we wouldn't let users upgrade themselves. You have to be a local admin to see that and to be able to kick off that particular deployment. And so then, essentially, we're waiting for IT admins to kick off that upgrade cycle for those users themselves as well. Office 365 Pro Plus 2013 version ends support at the end of this month. From then on, we'll only be supporting the new Office 365 Pro Plus 2016 client as well. You will continue to see service packs and security updates issued to that 2013 product, but we just won't be providing support. So we'll continue to patch it for the next few years, but it's not something that we'll provide active support on as well. So it can get kind of messy. Yeah. It's an unsupported product, that's right. So if you are using Office 365 Pro Plus 2013, you won't be able to get support from Premier Support for those particular issues. And it's a contentious policy, let's put it that way. But at the same time, we built Office 365 Pro Plus to be the best client to connect to Office 365. And as we roll out new capabilities in Office 365, they light up in the client version. We essentially tried to mitigate some of these concerns in Office 365 Pro Plus by having multiple channels. And essentially, a channel is a different feature set in Office 365 Pro Plus. There are two big ones. There's the current channel. Every month, we ship security updates and feature updates, and the deferred channel. In the deferred channel, every month we ship security updates, and 3 times a year we ship feature updates. So those are the kind of two speeds you can choose in getting features in Office 365 Pro Plus. Current channel, monthly, new features roll out, you get them automatically. Deferred channel, you're still secure. Every month you get the latest security packs, but you don't get new features until either February, June, or October every year. There's another build called the First Release Deferred Channel, or FRDC, because we just love acronyms, and so you'll hear us refer to FRDC quite a lot. What FRDC is really a validation build. And so what this validation build means is that 4 months before the deferred channel is released, you can see this First Release Deferred Channel, which has all of the features that you'll see in that build, and allows you to test and validate. So if you're concerned with your ERP system or your CRM system or your critical macros continuing to work with Office 365, First Release Deferred Channel gives you 4 months to test those particular systems before the actual deferred channel is released. And in that 4-month period, if there are issues that you report to Premier Support or those, or just through our regular support channels, we'll fix those issues and we'll release them in time for First Release Deferred Channel. So it gives you that 4-month testing cycle if you need it for your critical applications. Generally what we see is most organizations will use current channel for kind of their low-risk users, where they're just core information workers, but there may be a finance team that is very dependent on Excel spreadsheets and those sorts of things, and they'll use this deferred channel that kind of lag 4 months in their feature rollout, but that gives IT time to test and validate those particular builds as well. So this is the Pro Plus model, current channel and deferred channel. It's very similar to Windows 10. If you're familiar with Windows 10, Windows 10 has a similar concept called branches. You have the current branch and the current branch for business. There's slight differences in kind of how they get released and how often they get released, but it's a similar approach. The current branch is always up to date with the latest features, and the current branch for business is staggered and gives you time to test and validate that Windows 10 image before you roll it out to all of your organization. This is the final site I'll show you here, and it's a really interesting one because this is essentially our release notes for the Office 365 client. The roadmap is the release notes for the Office 365 service. You'll see new features and functionality added in the service. Because the way the service rolls out, it can hit tenants at different times. Whereas the Office 365 client, we set those dates by build numbers. And essentially, build numbers, you'll see a couple of different numbers. I think, yeah, this is the article. This is a big article. It's a great article. This one. Here we go. So you see version. The version number is very similar to how System Center and Windows 10 do version numbers. So we have a kind of a shared methodology for version. For instance, current channel 1612. What does that mean? It means it was the December 2016 build of Office 365 Pro Plus. Deferred channel 1605 is the May build, May 2016 build of the deferred channel. It is different to a build number. A build number is slightly different. So a build number is the kind of numerical developer compilation number of that particular build. We generally use the version number as shorthand when we're talking about those particular features as well. Yeah, so that's enough on that. So this update channel releases is kind of a key site because it gives you the decoder ring to work out if I want to look at 2016, a particular month, a particular channel, and it lists out the particular KBs or patches that apply to a particular build of Office 365 Pro Plus. In the traditional Office Client 2016 world, when a hotfix is issued or a monthly update is issued, it'll list out all of the KB articles that are affected. It's a little bit different with Office 365 Pro Plus because we have 3 different possible branches that you could be on. And so this site essentially allows you to see what these features are and what's introduced into the particular product. Not all of these features have corresponding KB articles. Generally in the client, the traditional client world, we're not adding features to Office Client every month. And so because we're not adding features every month, generally every fix is a fix for a problem, so it has an associated support KB article. In Office 365 Pro Plus, we hope not to have security issues every single month, and we hope to be focused more on adding new features. And so you see some of these features here. A security issue was patched in this particular build, non-security updates for other issues that weren't reported, and those sorts of things as well. So this is a key site for you to look at to kind of see everything that's going on in the particular builds that you're looking at as well. Any questions on any of those sites before I move on? Great. So that's services and our kind of client, cloud software and our client software as well. We're approaching some pretty big milestone dates for our traditional Office client as well. This year is end of support for Exchange 2007, SharePoint 2007, Groove 2007, Fast 2007, Office Accounting Express 2008, Exchange 2007, and Communication Server 2007, or was it 6R2? Or, yeah, we had some confusing names back then. And it was a big release for us. If you think back 10 years ago, 2007 was a major release. It was the first time we referred to Office not as a client app, but as a system and a suite of services with SharePoint, Office SharePoint Server, Exchange as an Office Mail Server, and the Office Communication Server, all as kind of an interactive platform. We introduced the ribbon to critical acclaim. And we introduced a new file format as well, OpenXML file format. And so these introductions I kind of look back on fondly now. It was the first release. We also had data sharing between applications, the ability to copy an Excel chart into PowerPoint and still have it act as a chart object rather than an image. And it was the first time we tried to run our own software ourselves in our first cloud service called Microsoft BPOS, the big piece of software, as we lovingly refer to it as well. And so, you know, fast forwarding 10 years, this retirement's a little bit different. There's a whole bunch of new considerations that we need to think about with Office 2007. There's the common ones. No more security updates. After 10 years, there'll be no security updates for these products. There'll be no support for these products. We essentially shut down our testing operation. We'll no longer test. We're no longer making code changes to that particular product. We'll no longer support it. We'll no longer test it. And so we can no longer guarantee Office 365 integration with any of the Office 2007 products, or Exchange 2007, or SharePoint 2007 as well. To complicate things a little bit more, Exchange 2016 doesn't support Office 2007. Office 2007 was the last version of Office that relied on MAPI over RPC over HTTP, the Outlook Anywhere protocol. Since then, we've moved to a new protocol called MAPI over HTTP. It's far more performant. It's much more reliable. And Exchange 2016 only supports MAPI over HTTPS connections. And so Office 2007 won't work with Exchange 2016. And in Exchange Online will block those RPC over HTTP connections from October 2017 as well. That means effectively that Outlook 2007 will no longer connect to Office 365. And beyond there, because we're not testing, we can't warn about further deprecations, for instance, to SharePoint or SharePoint Workspace and those sorts of things as well. So these are big considerations, and this is the first time since we've launched Office 365 that we are dealing with an Office client coming out of extended support. And so we're putting a lot of focus on this across the company because we want to make sure that customers have a seamless experience with this. And so what you should have seen already, if you have Office 2007 clients still connected to Exchange Online, you would see increasingly urgent message center notifications in your Office 365 Admin Center. Soon you'll start seeing mandatory service notification emails with more and more asterisks and exclamation points in them as we get closer and closer to that date to kind of warn you that this is going on. And so this is something that we're really focused on. We track every single customer in Office 365, essentially not individually by name, but we look at every connection into Office 365, the version of the protocol that's being connected, and we feed that back into the message center notifications as well. So definitely, if you started to get those notifications, or if you know you have Office 2007 users still in your environment, now's the time to upgrade before we get closer to end of support as well. So to kind of take you through the journey of what it looks like to build an Office client and how it gets from development and envisioning to release, it really doesn't start in 2007. We have to go back to the story of 2003. And in 2003, we started real work on our Office 2007 product. We just shipped Office 2003, SharePoint 2.0, Microsoft InfoPath, and the solutions we were looking at the time was XML, instant messaging, team calendars, document workspaces, and junk email were the big, interesting solutions that we were all focused on. The problem space was that security and privacy for the first time were really growing. 2003 was kind of our our post-virus release of Office, if I put it that way. If you kind of remember back to the turn of the century, millennium, the Melissa virus, these mail viruses were really spreading in the late 90s and those sorts of things. And 2003 was a time that we'd been at a Trustworthy Computing Initiative for about 7 years at that point. And so we felt fairly good that 2003 was a stable release. Just to remind you what 2003 was like, this was how most people used the internet, in internet cafes. So 2005 was when we released the beta for Office 2007. Anyone use the beta of Office 2007? Show of hands. Yeah. There were like 4 betas of Office 2007. Windows XP 64-bit finally shipped. WSUS was released. We announced Windows Vista as the next major, the Longhorn release of Microsoft. YouTube was invented. Google Maps was invented. Wi-Fi hotspots were invented. And we essentially had 4 releases of Office, and we were kind of tweaking the ribbon in each release. And kind of in 2 years, every cafe became an internet cafe with the introduction of Wi-Fi and those sorts of things. And so, fast forward to 2007. In fact, November 2006, we finally released the Office 2007 client. Great release with Exchange, with Office SharePoint Server, with Live Communication Server at the time. The XML file format, obviously new. We took a deep effort to standardize that particular client. And a month after we released Office 2007, the kind of technology landscape changed for the first time. Someone invented kind of the combination of a mobile internet device, a personal communication device, an organizer, and an app launcher all in the same device. And for those that are kind of nodding appreciatively, you know that as the Palm Centro. And of course, 2 months later, the iPhone was invented. And I think it took about 2 months before people started to ask us, like, where is Office on these new platforms? And of course, these things aren't invented overnight. They take many years to build. At that point, it was 5 years to get to Office 2007. And then in Office 2007, 2008 was in America, they call it the Great Recession, but here we more commonly refer to it as the global financial crisis. And so there's this major kind of change in the way that people were looking at software. And that's where we really started to invest heavily in our cloud solutions, that organizations were telling us that they can't afford to run all of these servers anymore, can't afford to have a specialist in SharePoint, a specialist in SQL, a specialist in Windows Server, an Exchange specialist, an archiving specialist, and a junk mail specialist all in the same organization. And so we invested a lot in the cloud in these days as well. Of course, we started to dabble with tablets as well. I remember this year, and this is kind of a bit of a reminiscing, but hey, it's 7 o'clock at night, and I'm still in a Seattle time zone. But I remember Gartner at this time describing tablets as executive jewelry, which is kind of funny at the time. And I kind of liked that because executives would come out and they would like demonstrate them as jewelry. There was kind of like the consistent pose that people would have to show tablets off as well. And of course, 2007 entered extended support in 2013 as we shipped our Office 2013 version as well. And so fast forward to today, we can finally celebrate the retirement of Office 365. So I thought I would jump into a quick video of a customer that's kind of made this journey as well.
I bet that everybody can open their pantries at home and find Kraft or Heinz products, spanning from cheese, coffee, ketchup, mayonnaise, and so on. Kraft Heinz is the company that results from the merge of the two powerhouse Kraft Foods Group and Heinz, and now is a global company with presence across 140 countries. That was one of the major reasons for the merge, to leverage the Heinz network for the expansion of the Kraft worldwide. The focus from the day one, establishing the new culture for the company.
Our technology helped us a lot. We have Office 365 in both companies. And the first day I could immediately connect with everybody in the company. It was mandatory for our integration. No business disruptions. We have everybody in the same address book, in the same email.
It was very important for me to be able to communicate with my team on day one of the merger. Having Office 365 makes it that much easier for me to understand ideas that have been successful for other brands. That collaboration makes it easier for me to gather insights from other teams. Essentially everything that I'm working on, from a campaign to a new product, really allows me to incorporate real-time feedback from my colleagues as I'm looking at sales presentations. It allows me to collaborate with my team members in real time, and by doing so, we're able to move a lot more quickly.
It's important to respond dynamically to the market needs. Cloud is one of the key elements that will give us that kind of agility. Making sure that we have cognitive systems that allow us to predict, allow us to self-learn, and to mimic behavior.
We are a company of analytical people. Everything we do is driven by data. Power BI will allow us to provide analytical data to people with the flexibility they need without any constraint on performance. When you look at the Office 365, I see some areas of innovation that resonate very well in Kraft Heinz. The Skype for Business with PSTN and Cloud PBX will connect even more people and get even faster decision-making wherever they are.
The importance of teamwork and collaboration, it's the base of how our company operates. In an organization that is global, Office 365 is the engine helping us to be one single company, one single organization, have the people working together.
So I really like that video because it kind of, there's a couple of different themes there that they talk about, and both Kraft and Heinz were on some very old software when they merged, and just the challenges of moving that kind of company forward is quite interesting. But there are a couple of things they touched on in this video that I thought were really interesting. Was around collaboration and the need to collaborate across the two companies, the use of mobile technology and the mobility of the experience. And anyone catch the Windows Phone cameo there? That's how you know they're in Europe. The intelligence capabilities and reliance on data in their organization, and then of course trust of that organization as well. And these aren't new terms or new concepts, but in 2007 we looked at them in a really different lens. Mobile is quite an interesting one, and this is the era of like the one PC per employee, and one laptop per child, and one laptop per student, and those sorts of things. And so mobiles is really around like that mobility of experience around Wi-Fi. And today we look at mobile in a very different lens of like, what is the mobile experience, and what's the mobile phone experience, and what's the ability to connect anywhere from any device, and those sorts of things as well. Intelligence, in 2007 we talked a lot about business intelligence, essentially having charts and new ways of looking at data. And today when we talk about intelligence, we're generally referring to artificial intelligence, machine learning capabilities, and learning heuristics that we apply to different parts of the software and Office, but also to the business problems in general. And finally, trust. The difference between the things we were worried about in 2007, like Sarbanes-Oxley and malware and those sorts of things, to today, where it's not just around like security of the environment, but it's also the kind of threat of nation states and hacktivism and all the various different government regulations. As technology gets better and better, I think government gets better and better at regulating those technologies. And so if you do business around Australia, across multiple states, or if you do business around the world or with customers around the world, your regulatory landscape now is very different to what it was back in 2007. So we need to adjust our thinking. And that's kind of the big takeaway, if nothing else, that as we think about how we did things in Office 2007, we can't do those same things in Office 2017. The big technology areas that we're focused on at Microsoft and what we believe organizations want are still kind of these big key buckets around collaboration, mobility, intelligence, and trust. But they're evolving quite dramatically, and it really requires a new mindset in IT and in IT roles as well. My team, we spend a lot of time kind of understanding how what makes a well-functioning IT organization and what makes a challenging IT organization as well. And what we see in these IT implementers, kind of if you're an architect or a delivery manager or a specialist or an administrator, these IT implementer roles are really changing. And now kind of the number one skill is around value broker roles. And the idea that you may not be controlling, like carrying the screwdriver and putting in the hard drive and swapping out those things anymore. But increasingly, the successful IT organizations are the ones that can understand multiple cloud services across multiple vendors and can spot the right customer problem and apply the right service to it, and then manage that kind of implementation of the business strategy as well. So it's a real big mindset change. It's getting late. Mindset change in what we're looking at as well. So this notion of being a service broker, of really understanding how to apply a technology like Office or Office 365, or even Salesforce or ERP or Azure or any of the many cloud services that you can essentially turn on at little or no cost in your organization. But understanding how to manage them, what the policies are to expect. And that's the difference between kind of IT professional and the shadow IT is that, shadow, it's very easy to turn on Dropbox. It's much harder to understand the lifecycle policies around when things change in Dropbox and what your rights are of the data that you store in Dropbox and how that information can be accessed and is it secure and where is it kept and all those sorts of things that kind of lay into our regulatory and risk posture that we want to take inside of the organization. A culture of empathy for end users. This is something that traditionally our profession hasn't been great at. But this is kind of more and more like the key. Like, users are bringing more and more technology into the environment from home. They're seeing new things. They can try new things. The barrier to entry of trying a new cloud service is very, very low. And so really, people skills and kind of these capabilities are really different, and that's the things that we'll be dealing with over the next few years as well. So that's kind of the high-level view of where we see the industry going and what the 2017 landscape looks like at how we land, products like Office and Office 2007 as well. But to kind of get a little bit more practical now, and as we need to embrace this kind of service broker world, we still have to manage the software and manage the technology. And so you have options. If you have 2007 or 2010 products today, it's a really interesting decision point. Is this the moment that you're going to move to Office 365 and into the cloud? Or do you think you could stay on the on-premises bandwagon for one more release? That's a choice. Is now the time to move to Office 365? Hopefully it's clear that from this conference and many others that we think everyone will move to Office 365 over time. We think cloud services for productivity just make way too much sense, that all organizations over time will be consuming productivity software as a service via the cloud, whether that's Microsoft, whether that's Google, whether that's new competitors, but it'll be a cloud-based solution. We can argue over the time it will take. Is that 5 years? Is that 20 years? Is that 50 years? These are very good questions. Mario and I, 10 years ago, spent a lot of time helping customers upgrade from Lotus Notes. And at the time, looking back on that, we could say, wow, it's going to take 20 years for these companies to replace Lotus Notes inside of their organization. Everything is built on Lotus Notes. The forms, the workflow, the email. It's not just email, it's an entire middleware system for these organizations. But it happened really quickly. It happened in the space of like a couple of years that all of a sudden, Notes went from like 50% market share to 5% market share. And so our view at Microsoft is that we are at the tipping point for Office 365, that if you are coming from Office 2007 and those sorts of things, and the complexity and the challenges of getting modern on that platform and meeting the kind of current demands are quite challenging. And now is a great time to move to Office 365. If you do want to stay on the kind of on-premises track, you can. Office 2016, Exchange 2016, SharePoint 2016 are fantastic products. We love all of our children. It's the same team that built both of them. They just have different prospects. One of the challenges, though, with the 2016 on-premises products is you are looking at an intermediate service upgrade. You need to get from SharePoint 2007 to SharePoint 2010, from SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013, from SharePoint 2013 to SharePoint 2016. So by waiting this long, you haven't saved any time. There's no direct upgrade path from 2007 to 2016. Now you have to squeeze in a lot of upgrades in a very short amount of time. And any SharePoint professionals in the room? No? Okay. It's really hard. To moving to Office 365, we have a service called Fast Track. And this is something that is really the extension of our DevOps model for Office 365. When we started BPOS in Office 2007, it was the first time that our engineers actually had to use the stuff they were making. And rightly so. Developers aren't IT professionals. And so while a developer may be building an Exchange product or an Office product and those sorts of things, we had a fairly great business where we spent a year thinking about it, we spent a year coding it, we spent a year testing it, then we'd shrink wrap it and give it to you, and you would kind of manage it. And if you needed help, give us a call. It'll probably take us 5 weeks to turn around a hotfix of anything you report. But as we moved to BPOS and Office 365, all of a sudden, we are running this stuff in production. We're giving ourselves a 3.9 SLA. That means we could take 43 minutes of downtime a month. And it drove a huge amount of change, culture change inside of our organization of what it really means to run DevOps. That's where you get a lot of our automation capabilities and service reliability capabilities in Office 365 today. But an extension of that is the onboarding experience. And onboarding to Office 365 is also a complex topic, right? There's stuff you need to do on your side in your data center. There's stuff we need to do in our data center as well. You can only migrate data into Office 365 through the door or the window we crack open for you. And so that's something that our Fast Track engineers really specialize in as well. So they're monitoring customers coming into Office 365, ensuring everything is working appropriately, and essentially providing kind of proactive assistance rather than you calling support and waking us up at all hours. It's much better for us to call you and set up a time and know your migration schedule and those sorts of things and recommend improvements that we see. And now we've been doing this for almost 5 years now with the Fast Track team. And so we've got very good guidance and documentation to migrate Exchange, SharePoint, even file shares into Office 365 through these tools as well. We're seeing a dramatic time saving in Fast Track. And this is something, again, we offer for free from Microsoft. It's our engineering team. It's not a consulting engagement or anything like that. It's just us assigning our engineers to talk directly to you guys to make them feel some of the pain of migrating into these services and make sure that we're building automation, we're building the right silicon solution to what today is kind of what we refer to as a carbon problem. Great quote from a customer here. We also have a program called Software Assurance Planning Services. This is essentially an engagement type that we built to help all customers, whether you're looking at on-premises upgrades to the 2016 platform or moving to Office 365. And essentially, a Software Assurance Planning Services program gives you access to either a certified Microsoft partner or a Microsoft consultant that can help you build your plan and your strategy around migrating to these particular topics. What we see, especially with customers that are still on Office 2007 or Office 2010, is it may not be a core competency of doing deployments. There's operational roles, there's business as usual roles, and you can be in an organization for 10 years and have never seen a desktop change or an Exchange server change and those sorts of things. And quite frankly, you may not even have the staff capacity to do those sorts of things. And so this Software Assurance Planning service is a great way to get an expert in that does upgrades time in and time out and get a kind of validated plan and a plan validated with Microsoft to help you upgrade to Office 365 or the on-premises products as well. So a couple of considerations around on-premises upgrades. Talked a bit about Office 365. I'll stop the sales pitch there. It's up to you to choose how you want to upgrade. But there's a couple of things that we need to think about when we're upgrading on-premises software. System requirements have changed a bit. In 2007, we supported a 32-bit Exchange client. We recommended 64-bit, but now Exchange 2016 is 64-bit only. Now you're looking at 8 gig minimum RAM in your Exchange servers. Storage size, in Exchange 2007, we've still very much relied on specialized SAN infrastructure and those sorts of things. But in 2016, you can essentially use JBOD disks and those sorts of things. But the big challenge is expectations are much different now than in 2007 around the size of a mailbox. It's not uncommon for users to want 5 gig mailboxes. It's not uncommon for users to have hundreds of gigs of mail in the mail services. So that's something to definitely consider as you're planning your Exchange upgrade as well. The other thing to note here is that, with modern hardware, you may have been able to get away with virtualizing your Exchange or your SharePoint environment on 2007 on new hardware. As you look to the 2016 platform, you may find that virtualization is no longer giving you the performance improvements that you need as well. I'll show you the SharePoint story just to scare you a little bit more. SharePoint has grown quite a lot in terms of what it took to run 2007 to what it takes to run 2016 as well. Across database, the app servers, the front-end servers, it's definitely a consideration, especially for those that are using virtualization. So in terms of client deployment, you have a couple of options. Obviously, the managed deployment option. If you're using Office 365 Pro Plus, you can have a self-installation option as well through users as well. MDT and some of those tools are still around. System Center is still around. You can still do all of those same things that you can do with Office. But kind of compare Office 365 Pro Plus to 2007. You're looking at a different packaging approach, a different setup approach. It's essentially a streaming installation. You have a slipstream servicing model. So rather than pushing out a patch every month, the Office 365 Pro Plus client will pull down a patch, essentially a binary differential from either the cloud directly or from the particular network source that you locate as your kind of your distribution point. Office 365 Pro Plus is user-based licensing rather than volume licensing. So instead of using a KMS server or a multiple activation key, you're essentially activating against Office 365 across the cloud and those sorts of things as well. I get a lot of questions around building custom apps, and who has custom apps in Office? Any InfoPath users or Excel macros? A couple. InfoPath is a deprecated feature. We've removed InfoPath from kind of the roadmap. There's no InfoPath 2016 release. What does that mean if you're using InfoPath? It means you have to repackage InfoPath 2013 and deploy that alongside your 2016 image. We've extended the end of support date for InfoPath 2016 to 2026. Sorry, InfoPath 2013 to 2026. So even though we don't have a new InfoPath release, you can still get the full 10-year life cycle with InfoPath 2013 to align with the rest of the 2016 client as well. But now as we look at what these business applications look like, the technologies now are essentially nascent. You've seen, hopefully, Power Apps, Flow, and some of these capabilities we're introducing into the cloud today that are very much cloud-native application development. And so they're the technologies that we expect over time to replace InfoPath solutions, custom Excel solutions that can work across operating system types and work across browsers and those sorts of things as well. So our successor product there is Power Apps. it is not feature for feature the same as InfoPath. It's a different consideration of how to build apps and those sorts of things as well. Another thing to consider is it's a good time to revisit how you do those InfoPath apps altogether. And I want to show you just a quick example of a different way of doing kind of common InfoPath tools here. Let's see. So I'm going to jump across. As soon as my computer wakes up. Secure, multi-factor. So I want to show you Teams. And I demoed Teams this morning a little bit, and hopefully you've seen some of the other sessions. But one of the things that I find really interesting with Teams is the notion of a chatbot. And so in my team, we get a lot of requests for assistance, questions, and those sorts of things that typically we would have solved with a SharePoint site and a request form and those sorts of things, and a lot of email, and a big FAQ document. And what we see is that even if you have a big FAQ document and a form and those sorts of things, people still tend to just reach out on email, or reach out on instant message, or call you and those sorts of things, and it's kind of annoying. So we decided to build our own Office bot. Super easy. This one's kind of nice and simple. But essentially what we can do here is say, like, hello, Clippy. We called it Clippy because it's a life cycle bot. I'm not dead yet. We had a little bit of fun building this. But essentially, using the Q&A maker and just writing some very simple code, we're able to replace something that we would have traditionally done with a SharePoint site. So here, for instance, tell me when Office ends support. We have multiple Office versions. You can see in chatbots, you can make it interactive. So it's not just all kind of entering text. You can have selection marks and those sorts of things. It's taking way too long. But essentially, what this will do, it's just another interesting way of interacting with content. And as we think about solutions in 2017, and you want to mobileify some of these kind of workflow processes and those sorts of things. Come on, Clippy. Oh, there we go. It's taking a little bit of time. But again, it's trolling the website. It's bringing back answers. We actually train this. Thumbs up, thumbs down, then it helps inform the algorithm. I can ask it questions that maybe it doesn't know the answer to, like, what is the successor to InfoPath? And if it doesn't know the answer, we essentially log the question. And so once a week, we find that, it records the questions it doesn't know the answers to, we fill in the answers, and improves the thing next week as well. There's all sorts of interesting things you can start to do with bots. I'm not a great developer, so this is like super rough and ready, but it's just reduced our reliance on plain old email and workflow for these sorts of things as well. You can try this out if you like, aka.ms/office chatbot. It's kind of a cool little thing to look up different areas like that. We're looking at adding new functionality constantly over time there as well. But it's an interesting solution. As we think about Office client development, it used to be that you have to build everything in Excel or everything in Word, and macros was the only tool you have because that's kind of what you could rely on being on the desktop. You could send someone a Word document shaped like a form, and they could fill out that form, and you'd have a little macro that submitted the code and those sorts of things. With solutions like Azure, it's much easier to provision much richer ways of collaborating and those sorts of things as well, so definitely check that out. So a couple things to think about, right? Identify the products that are coming up on retirement. There's a lot of products in that 2007 wave. Across Office alone, we have 400 different products that we're managing the end of life over the next 3 years with Office 2007 and Office 2010 as well. This is a great time to evaluate moving to Office 365. We have a lot of customers already there, as hopefully you've seen. We have a lot of solutions now that automate a lot of that migration from some of these old products. And we are investing a lot in making the experience of moving from Office 2007 into Office 365 products as easy as possible. In fact, it's actually easier than moving into the latest on-premises products as well. Think about your IT roadmap and make sure you are factoring in these lifecycle policies as you set your roadmap. Again, 10 years for these longer-term products, 1 year notice for service deprecations, 30 days notice for IT impacting events that you need to take action on to fix particular things as well. While that is a 30-day notification, I should say, like our aim internally is 12 months communication with anything that requires IT action. Obviously, 12 months notification for anything that requires IT action is great for planned events. Sometimes things change that we can only provide 30-day notice as well. Engage with your Microsoft representatives. The software assurance planning services to work with like close partners, the fast track services. These benefits are all free or included in being an Office 2007 customer or an Office 365 customer today as well. So I kind of leave you with this quote, which I think is pretty interesting that came up in some of our research and focus groups. But the days of I'm a nerd are numbered. Like these cloud tools, there's more than one ways to solve a technical problem. So it's really empathy first now, critical thinking, and then the geek value to understand and recommend the right solution to the business, which I think is a really interesting way of looking at technology over the next few years as well. Plenty more resources. You've seen this slide a lot. True story, someone won a drone pass in my session this morning. So fill this out. I seem to be lucky today. Good scores obviously rank higher and get you a pilot pass sooner. So thank you very much for listening and sticking around so late on a Wednesday. Thank you.